This is the Truth Network.
Hidden treasures of the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. We are digging into lovesick comfort food today in the second chapter of the Song of Solomon. Again, in our quest to understand really the Hebrew language better, the letters better, and to get an understanding of these statutes that are spoken of in the 119th Psalm. And that, it says our lips will utter praise when Yahweh has taught us thy statutes. So we're hoping that we will be able to do that as we understand more about this love-sick comfort food. And boy, I'll tell you what, there's just a whole lot's explained right here. In the masculine journey that we do, we teach a lot of John Eldridge's stuff, and John Eldridge's taught for years that the core desires of a man's heart are a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. And his son one time said, yeah, I think it's hilarious, that the problem with the beauty is she just doesn't stay rescued. Well, after the jubilation of being in his banqueting house and his banner over me is love, we immediately go down the tubes here. We don't stay. Unfortunately, the church does not say rescued here, so we get sick right after apparently the banquet. So it says, verse 5 in English says, "Stay me with flagons, comfort me with apples, for I am sick with love." And so, of course, it immediately begs the question, what's a flagon? Maybe I've never. In a lot of places, it says flagons of wine. So this is a very strange word. And after much research, it's kind of interesting that what Rashi teaches on this, which is, an ancient Hebrew scholar that he understands the word in ways that are really unique, and, highly revered Bible commentator, is he says that this was the ancient way. If somebody got really sick, you would feed them these sort of raisin cakes and spread apples all around their bed. Well, the word that is used for comfort me with apples clearly is the word spread. So we're spreading apples, that's for sure. And, this idea of these raisin cakes or this flagon, however that works, whatever that actually is, it's clearly comfort food, okay? In both cases, both the flagons and the apples have to do with comfort food. But the thing that you can't help but note when you look at the verse in Hebrew is the idea of flagons. The root word of the word flagons is rejoice, which is the root word of the word lily that is the beginning of the, chapter. This idea of, when we get a good look at Jesus, right, in his presence is fullness of joy. And so apparently these raisin cakes, which doesn't surprise me, anything made out of apples and raisins, especially if you had cinnamon, apparently you rejoice when you eat this stuff. So, but the idea of flagons clearly has to do with rejoicing. And some people say they're dainties or some type of very sweet bread. I don't know. But what I know is clearly when you eat them, you rejoice. And it's getting back to the beginning of the chapter that in his presence is fullness of joy. We're looking for it to be in his presence by eating this comfort food, which may have to do with why I always stay overweight. I don't know. And then it says spread apples, right? Or comfort me with apples, however you want to look at that. The word apple, of course, is used previously in the chapter as a picture, right, of the fruit of Christ. And so here we have, this, again, idea of being comforted with the cheap imitation of Jesus, whatever that may look like. Because what? Because they're sick. And they're sick, lovesick. They're brokenhearted. And so, you can't help but wonder, why are they brokenhearted? They just had this amazing banquet. And, as we say, the beauty just doesn't stay rescued. Well, if you're like me, we always have this tendency to go, oh, this is just too good to be true, He can't really, he knows my story. He knows what, And I think we have a tendency to just think it's too good to be true. And that, I don't really deserve this, or I'm not belong. It's an amazing thing that our heart does with that. And so, we unfortunately cannot accept all the love that Jesus has to offer. And so I'm not terribly surprised, I don't guess, that if I went to this unbelievable banquet, experienced all this, that I would immediately start feeling like, oh, well, I what did I do to deserve all this? And you might even remember the movie Sound of Music. I must have done something good, that song that they sang after they fell in love. Well, I couldn't help but think of that. It's just there. And so maybe you can remember like a relationship, and I certainly can remember, like, why would Tammy love, here's this beautiful, delightful, Tammy has a personality like nobody on the planet, and she has a joy that she just, phenomenal, and she was clearly out of my league, and like, this is just too good to be true, but I really, really, really want to be around her, but am I really the right one for, all these crazy questions we ask ourselves, because unfortunately we don't want to stay rescued. I don't know how all that works. But then what do? We eat the cheap imitation. We go for the comfort food rather than for the real thing, right? So, we ask to be comforted with flagons and with apples rather than the actual thing. And again, we're going to see much more of how Jesus responds to that is coming up. But what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing that this is such a real song, right? This isn't like they go off in the sunset and live happily ever after. Immediately after the big banquet, we're sick with love. It's how it kind of goes. And so maybe you can relate to this. I sure can. And it's actually quite reassuring that Solomon understood this at some level, and certainly tells me a lot about comfort food. And I'm going to have to go eat some apples and raisins after that. Both those things. Well, I should mention that apples, when you look at the word in Hebrew, I'll just end with this. It's so beautiful. Because the first letter in the word apple is a tav. And you might know that is saying true. It's like God's stamp on something, that whatever this is true. The word Torah starts with a tav, and therein lies that whole idea. And then the next letter is a pei, which has to do with the presence. And so here's the true presence, right? And which is what we're looking for. We're looking for that true presence. Isn't that beautiful that an apple is that? And then it's a vav, which tells you that that's sort of a Jacob's ladder, a continuation of the pei. And then the final letter is a het, which is the the eighth letter, the one we seem to be in search of. But it is the idea of our marriage. So it's almost like, if I could just take this word and just spell it out, it's like, here we have the true face of a continual marriage, right? And it gives you the idea of the apple of your eye is this connection, this bonding, this relationship that has to do with what this apple is. And so isn't it absolutely beautiful that is the tree that she describes that Jesus is this true face of a continual marriage. Like, man, that's absolutely beautiful. And so no wonder we love apples. So go enjoy your comfort food, or hopefully more. The Bible is your comfort food, and it is full of apples and flagons, I promise.